The tension between cultural preservation and food safety creates one of the most challenging aspects of mushroom poisoning prevention. Many communities have deep foraging traditions extending back generations, where mushroom knowledge is culturally valued and economically important. Dismissing these traditions as uniformly dangerous misses the complexity, but failing to address the real risks costs lives. Finding the balance requires understanding both the value and the limitations of traditional ecological knowledge. Eastern European communities, many Asian cultures, and indigenous peoples across North America have sophisticated traditional knowledge about local mushrooms. Elders who foraged for decades develop genuine expertise about species in their specific geographic regions. This knowledge is culturally significant, economically valuable for families supplementing food budgets through foraging, and represents an important connection to heritage and land. Public health authorities who simply tell these communities stop foraging will be ignored, and rightfully so. The message demonstrates cultural insensitivity and fails to acknowledge legitimate expertise. But here's where the danger emerges. Traditional knowledge is geographically specific. The mushroom species that grows in Poland doesn't necessarily exist in Pennsylvania, but similar-looking species might, and those could be deadly. Immigrant foragers applying their homeland knowledge in new regions have suffered poisoning outbreaks precisely because they confidently identified familiar-looking mushrooms that were actually different, toxic species. A Korean immigrant who safely foraged paddy straw mushroom lookalikes in Asia might encounter death caps in California that closely resemble those edible species. The visual similarity becomes a death trap. The psychology of traditional knowledge transfer makes this especially challenging. When elders with respected community standing share foraging wisdom, questioning that knowledge feels like disrespecting culture and experience. Younger community members face social pressure to trust traditional teaching even when health authorities issue warnings. This creates situations where people continue foraging based on increasingly outdated or geographically inappropriate knowledge because abandoning it feels like cultural betrayal. Effective prevention requires culturally sensitive approaches. Partner with community leaders rather than bypassing them. Create resources in native languages that acknowledge the validity of traditional knowledge while explaining geographic limitations. Work with respected community foragers to develop locally relevant identification guides that show both safe traditional species and dangerous lookalikes specific to the new region. The goal isn't eliminating foraging culture, it's updating traditional knowledge with location-specific safety information. Case studies reveal the stakes. Hmong communities in the United States have experienced multiple poisoning outbreaks from death caps misidentified as edible species from Southeast Asia. Russian immigrant families in the Pacific Northwest have been hospitalized after consuming local Amanita species they mistook for European edibles. These aren't failures of traditional knowledge per se, they're failures to recognize that traditional knowledge doesn't automatically transfer across continents.